She called herself the OG of the OC. For 14 seasons, Vicki Gunvalson showed up on your screen as the loudest, most enthusiastic, most lovable housewife in Orange County. She threw parties, she built empires, she screamed woo-hoo like it was her religion. But behind the champagne, the designer bags, and the perfectly curated Orange County lifestyle, there was a side of Vicki Gunvalson that the cameras barely scratched the surface of. Fraud lawsuits from elderly women, accusations of elder financial abuse, feuds so ugly they tore her own family apart. Today, we are pulling back the curtain on the real Vicki Gunvalson. And trust me, what you're about to hear will change how you see her forever. Stay with me. Before we get into the scandals, you need to understand who Vicki actually is, because the persona she built is the foundation everything else rests on. Born Victoria Steinmetz on March 27, 1962, in Illinois, Vicki grew up in a working-class family. Her father owned a construction company. Her mother was a homemaker. She had a rough childhood in some ways. At just 5 years old, she underwent surgery to remove a benign tumor from her inner ear and lost 50% of her hearing. By age 25, after 6 surgeries total, she had lost all hearing in her right ear. That's a detail worth remembering, because Vicki has always positioned herself as a fighter, a survivor, someone who clawed their way up from nothing. After her father died of Alzheimer's disease in 1991, Vicki pivoted into the world of health insurance. She obtained her California insurance license, moved to Orange County, got married, and in 1994 founded Koto Insurance and Financial Services. When Bravo came calling in 2006 for the very first season of The Real Housewives of Orange County, Vicki was already a successful businesswoman, and she used the show brilliantly. As a marketing platform for her insurance company, as a platform for her personal brand, and as a vehicle to position herself as the most powerful woman in the room. For years, that strategy worked, but what happens when the mask slips? Let's start with the most explosive chapter in Vicki Gunvalson's story, and one of the biggest scandals in Real Housewives history. Season 10 of RHOC. The year is 2015, and Vicki's boyfriend, a man named Brooks Ayers, has announced that he has been diagnosed with stage 3 non-Hodgkin's lymphoma, a serious, life-threatening form of cancer. Now, at first, the cast rallied around him. This is cancer. Nobody questions cancer. But something didn't sit right with Vicki's castmates, specifically Tamra Judge, Meghan King, and Heather Dubrow. The questions started small. Why isn't he getting more aggressive treatment? Why does he keep changing his story? Why does he avoid specific medical questions? Then it escalated. Meghan King, whose stepmother-in-law was fighting real cancer at the same time, became obsessed with getting to the truth. She started digging, and what she found was damning. Brooks produced medical documents claiming he had been treated at City of Hope, one of the most respected cancer hospitals in California. But when those documents were checked, the hospital confirmed they had never treated anyone by the name of David Brooks Ayers, not once. The paperwork was forged. In November 2015, Brooks finally came clean. In a public statement, he admitted, "Words cannot express the deep regret that I have in fabricating documents to prove to the world that I, in fact, have cancer. What I did was wrong and inexcusable. I acted alone." He still maintained he actually had cancer, just that he forged the documents to protect his privacy, a claim many found impossible to believe. But here's where Vicki's role becomes complicated. Throughout the entire season, while her castmates were raising legitimate concerns, Vicki stood by Brooks. She defended him. She screamed at her co-stars. She called them liars. She told producers, friends, and fans that Brooks was sick and that the women attacking him were heartless bullies trying to destroy their relationship. The question the world started asking was, did she know? At the season 10 reunion, Vicki finally cracked. She admitted she wasn't sure Brooks had cancer. She said she had been duped. She broke down crying. She ended the relationship. But critics weren't convinced. Because if Vicki was truly a victim, why had she fought so hard, so publicly, for so long, against people who were only trying to find the truth? Some believed she had allowed a false cancer narrative to play out because it served her storyline, because it gave her camera time, because it made her sympathetic. And to make things even stranger, in 2021, Vicki herself told a podcast that she had cancer. She said the words herself, "I had cancer." She later walked it back, claiming doctors found cancer cells that required a full hysterectomy and that her words had been misconstrued. A woman whose boyfriend faked cancer, who spent a season defending him, and who then described herself as having cancer, only to clarify she never actually did. You cannot write this stuff. To this day, Vicki insists she was entirely innocent. "I never scammed anybody," she has said. "I was scammed." But her cast, the fans, and many analysts of the show believe the Cancergate scandal was a turning point, the moment that revealed Vicki Gunvalson was capable of allowing a devastating lie to go unchallenged when it benefited her. Cancergate wasn't the only time Vicki showed a dark side. Throughout her 14 seasons on RHOC, a consistent pattern emerged, and her castmates noticed it. Kenya Moore, who crossed paths with Vicki on Real Housewives' Ultimate Girls trip, summed it up bluntly. "Vicki is a bully. She bullied a whole housewife cast for years. Every time I see her, she's just not a pleasant person." And that's not one woman's opinion. That's a pattern. Let's look at how Vicki treated the women around her. When new, younger castmates joined the show, women like Meghan King and Lydia McLaughlin, Vicki made it very clear they had not earned their place. She weaponized her OG status, holding her seniority over newer cast members like a crown, openly cold and dismissive toward anyone who threatened her position at the top of the pecking order. When Meghan King had the audacity to investigate Brooks Ayers' cancer claims, Vicki didn't engage with the questions. She attacked Meghan personally. She called her manipulative, power-hungry, and trouble, all because a woman was trying to find out the truth. When tensions with her best friend Tamra Judge exploded, and they exploded many, many times, Vicki's approach was never self-reflection. It was deflection, then attack. She accused Tamra of spreading the rumor that Tamra's husband Eddie was gay. She aired private information about Tamra's life when it suited her. And when Tamra pulled back from a business project they were doing together after Shannon Beador's DUI arrest, Vicki said publicly that Tamra didn't have the balls to talk to her and had a black heart. This is her best friend she's talking about. Even her own family wasn't safe. When her son-in-law Ryan Culberson posted an innocent 4th of July photo that included her ex-husband Don, Vicki couldn't let it go. She commented publicly on the photo with a pointed, passive-aggressive remark. Ryan fired back, telling her to stop drunk posting drama on his page. Ryan had also previously accused Vicki of being a neglectful grandmother, ignoring FaceTime calls from her grandchildren, being absent when the family needed her. And at the show's season 14 reunion, her final reunion, Vicki stormed off the set after calling RHOC my show. She had been demoted to a friend role and made to wait backstage while the full-time housewives filmed. The demotion humiliated her. And rather than exit with grace, she exploded. These aren't random outbursts. They're a pattern, a consistent inability to accept accountability, to receive criticism, or to treat the people around her, colleagues, family, or friends, with sustained respect when things don't go her way. During the COVID-19 pandemic, Vicki Gunvalson didn't just embarrass herself. She potentially endangered people. In March 2020, when California implemented some of the strictest lockdown measures in the country, Vicki decided she was above them. She publicly called for the state to reopen non-essential businesses, hair salons, nail techs, restaurants, as early as May 1st, 2020, when the death toll was still rising sharply. Critics were furious. These weren't just businesses. They were places where workers had no choice but to be in close contact with strangers, with no vaccine available, with no treatment proven effective. Vicki's push to reopen was widely condemned as tone-deaf at best and dangerous at worst, all so she could get her Botox and acrylic nails done. But it got worse. On Real Housewives' Ultimate Girls trip, Vicki went further, openly questioning the COVID-19 vaccines and booster shots. She told fellow housewives, "There has to be an end to this booster, this, follow the money, baby, follow the money." When directly asked if she was an anti-vaxxer, Vicki said, "Yeah." She went on to imply that people would die from receiving the vaccine. Let that land? An insurance professional, someone who built a career on protecting people's health and financial well-being, was publicly suggesting that life-saving vaccines would kill the people who got them. She was not a fringe internet commenter. She had a massive, loyal platform, and she chose to use it to spread misinformation during one of the deadliest public health crises in a century. Now, we get to perhaps the most serious part of Vicki Gunvalson's story, and the part that gets talked about the least, because while she was filming reality television, running her brand, and living her best life in Orange County, Two elderly women were in court, claiming Vicki Gunvalson had financially destroyed them. Joan Lyle was 82 years old when she sued Vicki Gunvalson for alleged fraud over a life insurance policy. According to the lawsuit, Joan had been sold a policy that didn't perform as promised. Vicki denied all wrongdoing. Her lawyers called her a woman of the utmost integrity. The case was eventually dismissed. Vicki moved on. Most people never heard about it. But then, 6 years later, it happened again. Diane Field was a 74-year-old widow and lung cancer survivor with a $6 million estate. She was managing her finances alone after her husband, George, had been severely injured in a bicycle accident. She was grieving. She was vulnerable. And in 2019, she was introduced to Vicki Gunvalson. According to the lawsuit filed in May 2024, Vicki and her business partner Allie convinced Diane to move 90% of her combined net worth, money that had always been in stocks and mutual funds, into insurance products and annuities. Specifically, something called the Allianz 222 Indexed Annuity. They allegedly promised Diane that this move would lower her taxes, protect her children's inheritance, and keep her finances safe. They reassured her again and again. What Diane says she discovered later was devastating. She had been placed into a life insurance policy that cost $300,000 a year in premiums. Not a one-time payment as allegedly described. By the time Diane started asking questions, she had already paid over $1 million in premiums. When she contacted Allianz directly in 2024, a representative told her she had over $600,000 sitting in her account and that she should not send any more payments because of the excess. Nobody had told her this. She had been paying into an account that was already over full, apparently without proper disclosure. Diane Field accused Vicki Gunvalson and her partner of financial elder abuse, of using misrepresentation and fraudulent tactics to steer a grieving, vulnerable older woman into products that benefited the sellers far more than they benefited her. The lawsuit alleged that Vicki and Allie put their own financial interests, their commissions, ahead of their clients' well-being. Vicki's legal team denied everything. They called her a well-respected insurance broker with more than 34 years of experience, who has helped over 7,000 clients. They called the allegations completely false, and while the case was still active as of late 2024, what is undeniable is the pattern. 2 lawsuits, both involving elderly women, both involving insurance products, both involving allegations of misrepresentation, one dismissed, one ongoing. Vicki Gunvalson built her brand on the idea that she was a successful, independent businesswoman who worked hard, played by the rules, and earned everything she had. But behind the Kodo Insurance logo and the woohoo was a business track record that 2 separate elderly women found harmful enough to take to court. There's one final layer to the Vicki Gunvalson story that doesn't get nearly enough attention: her own family. Vicki divorced her second husband, Don Gunvalson, in 2014 after years of what she described as emotional distance. On the show, she told viewers her love tank had been empty for years. She positioned herself as a woman who deserved more and walked away. But she later admitted on the Behind the Velvet Rope podcast that she believed the show itself had contributed to the destruction of her marriage. She said she had fallen prey to divorce. She acknowledged she had hurt Don, broken his heart. After the divorce, something remarkable happened. Don maintained a beautiful, ongoing relationship with Vicki's daughter Brianna and her children. They called him Grampy D. They flew him out to visit. They posted photos with him. And Vicki couldn't stand it. When son-in-law Ryan Culberson posted a simple, joyful 4th of July photo with Don and the grandkids, Vicki publicly commented with a pointed, passive-aggressive remark. Ryan's response? He publicly told her to stop drunk posting drama on his page. Vicki's daughter Brianna largely stayed out of the public fighting, but the picture that emerged was one of a woman who, for all her talk about family and love and filling the love tank, sometimes failed the people who were supposed to be the most important. And when Vicki announced the gender of Brianna's 4th baby on Instagram before Ryan had a chance to do it himself, he went public with his frustration, calling her out by name, unable to hide his exasperation with her anymore. So, who is the real Vicki Gunvalson? She is, without question, a complicated woman. She built a business from scratch. She survived real hardship. She made genuine moments of television history. There are people who genuinely love her. But she also stood by a man who faked cancer and attacked the women trying to find the truth. She spread dangerous health misinformation to hundreds of thousands of followers. She was sued not once but twice by elderly women who said she had destroyed their finances. She was called a bully by multiple colleagues across multiple franchises, and her own son-in-law felt compelled to call her out publicly, more than once. Vicki Gunvalson is not the villain of some cartoon story. She's something more uncomfortable than that. She's someone who told the world she always did everything right, while the evidence kept suggesting otherwise. And that, perhaps, is the most unsettling thing of all.